Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the live Q&A for Small Gauge Trauma 2020. Thank you for joining us. We have an incredible array of filmmakers from around the world with us tonight. One of the few great things about virtual festivals is that everybody's kind of in town, so that's great. And you get to meet this brilliant pack. If you could all unmute your cameras, you could all open your cameras and unmute your mics and join us, that would be great. Hi.
Yeah.
Okay. People are still slowly opening. Excellent. So everyone's numbered from 1 to 9, and that's basically our virtual version of having people standing left to right. I know it's completely inorganic and strange, but if you can begin from 1 going upwards and just introduce yourself to the audience, tell them the film that you made.
Yeah, my name's Richard Jones. I live in Austin, Texas, and I made Oh Dear.
Hi, my name's Thomas Mendolia. I live in Los Angeles, and I made Mr. This for That.
Hello, I'm Felipe Vargas. Happy to be here virtually. I'm the director of Milk Teeth, and this is my roommate / production designer, TJ Ryan.
Hi, my name is Danilo Beckovic. I'm based in Belgrade, Serbia, and I did the little one.
Hi, I'm Jasper de Bruin. I'm based in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and I made Nightingale.
Oh, hi, sorry, I'm not counting very well. I'm Faye Jackson. I made Changeling. I'm based in London.
And Kelsey, I feel like, yeah, you sort of got jumped on.
Oh, sorry,
one.
did I? No.
Oh,
Jasper
sorry.
came in. It was like, maybe there's a time zone thing. It turns 5 into 6. Don't worry. Yes, hi, Kelsey.
Hello, I'm Kelsey Bollig. I wrote and directed The Fourth Wall.
Fantastic, thanks. Again, going from 1 upwards, if you can go into a little bit about why you chose to make this particular film, the film that you made now.
Oh, sorry. Why I made the film? I think
yeah, or I should say what led to you making the film that you made.
Yeah, it's funny. It was a tweet from a filmmaker friend about hitting a deer, and I initially wrote it as a comedy, and then ended up changing it to a father-son story because I found that more compelling, and I kind of found myself wanting to have a little more of a real struggle within it than just trying to do more of a broad comedy. And so I acted in it with my son, kind of made it like a lot of times film kind of takes you away from your family. And so it created an opportunity to spend time with him, even though he's killing me.
I was going to say. Great.
Mr. This for That was actually a student film at USC, part of the MFA program. And it was part of actually a class called 546 at USC. There's a bunch of numbers, and the 546 class is basically the advanced filmmaking class where there are 3 short films that are produced, and Mr. This for That was one of them. So it was written by Michael Carr. There's a whole process of pitching the projects and then which projects actually get selected, and then you actually film those projects as part of a class during the semester. And so we had a tremendous crew, great producers, an amazing team, and this was kind of my thesis film. Yeah,
it's really accomplished, and it also feels personal to a point where I wouldn't have thought it to be a film made by committee in a sense.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm a child of divorce. The writer Michael Carr is also a child of divorce, and that was huge for us, as we were definitely wanting to make this movie as if the monster didn't exist, it would still operate like a family drama. And that was hugely important to us, is telling the story about a little girl who's navigating a broken home and what she decides to do about it, whether good or bad.
Fantastic, thanks. Felipe?
Yeah, similar to Thomas, where mine was also actually a USC film, the undergraduate equivalent. And the writer, Nick Lopez, and I were both born in Colombia. We both went to high school in Florida. And then we both ended up at school in California, and we never worked together. And we said, we have to make this final film before we graduate. So we teamed up, and it was very much inspired by a lot of dark fairy tales, a lot of medieval artwork, a lot of the magical realism in Colombia too. And we just had a blast. We had a great team, and it was such a fun time to put it together.
Danilo?
Yeah, this story was actually written by my writer for another director. and he was supposed to do it, but when he dropped it, I read it and I was like, we should make this film. Actually, it wasn't written for me at all, but I thought it was very smart, the screenplay, and it was very funny, even on paper. It was only like 2.5 pages, and we made a 10-minute film. It was a great,
really big scale too. And made on quite a big scale too.
We did it in 2 days, and I have a couple of friends who helped me. We had a great stuntman crew. Some guys, actually, the guy who did the last Bond film and the last Men in Black film is based in Bulgaria, which is next to Serbia. And we worked on a film before that, and I was like, I'm making this short film, and if you have a free day, maybe you could come to Belgrade and help us. And he likes coming to Belgrade. So he came to Belgrade, and we did the film. And then on the next day, he flew back to Sofia, and on the day after that, he flew to Morocco to shoot Men in Black Part 3, right?
Right on. Kelsey?
Yeah, the fourth wall kind of was created through like 2 different events. One, we were showing our other film, Asking for a Friend in Paris, because that's where my EP was from. And basically we were approached by several people saying like, here's what we'll give you if you come shoot another horror film, or a horror film in Paris. One was like that awesome theater that we got to shoot in.
Amazing location.
Yeah, we got really lucky. So I like kind of wrote a script in that theater, and then 4 days before I was supposed to like leave to go to Paris, I was run over by a car. And I know, woo. And like then the second version of that script kind of came out of me on drugs in a hospital bed. So we ended up shooting that version of the script, and so it came out of like a bunch of different things, but I'm happy it is what it is.
Fantastic. And the fact that it was made in France and embraced by French funders, it makes me connected immediately to like Lucille Hatzel-Halilovic and Gaspar Noé, and that level of kinetic, very visceral storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. Gaspar Noé is like a huge influence of mine. So, he's all over this film.
It's its own distinct creation. I don't mean to say that. I feel like it's coming of a certain breed, of aggressive filmmaking that I love. So Jasper.
I was introduced to a friend, a screenwriter, and we sort of hit it off personally. And she asked me like, so what do you want to do? And I said like, I want to make a horror film. And then we basically just threw a lot of ideas around, and then we ended up on what we thought was the scariest place to be, which is a nursing home. And I remembered I once saw this how do you say this? Like CCTV, like hidden camera stuff from a nursing home.
Yeah, the elder abuse, like this.
Yeah, and it's stuck with me, and I thought like, it sort of traumatized me, so I want to do something with that, and that's how Nightingale came to be.
Okay.
Changeling, the original idea. I think I wrote it shortly after giving birth, so it was quite a few years ago now. And then it was part of a project that didn't happen. And I kind of revisited it. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it's one of these things that it sort of remembered it and felt that I understood it differently, sort of many years later. And I really wanted to try the effects, because I thought it was something that I could do on a fairly low budget, but do in a very kind of visceral way. That's how it came about.
And atmospherically, it's just an unbelievable film.
That was it. To be honest, when I originally wrote it, there was a plot, and I signed it. When I came back to it, I thought that doesn't matter. What matters is actually just how it feels. What I actually wanted to convey was a feeling more than any kind of story. So that was another thing that kind of came back.
But yeah, it plays as just a tapestry of pure emotion, anxiety, loneliness.
Yeah, and that
revulsion.
was it. It was just rather than trying to get, rather than trying to get the story, just get that feeling of, sort of postpartum, not sleeping, not knowing what's going on, that feeling, yeah.
No, it's just fantastic. So Steve, on the Green Sea, which I'm a huge fan of. I mean, I love all the shorts in the block, needless to say, but the Green Sea really did a number on me. It's such a powerful film. And one of the things that I really admire of it is that you had the confidence to let it be the running time that it needs to be. And I feel a lot of people will tell these very dramatic, potent types of stories, and they'll be under pressure to keep them under 15 minutes. They'll constantly try to make the moments briefer, make things play out as long as they need to be to convey what's happening and then get away really quick just to keep things moving. And you have the confidence to stay in the moments and have the children try to kill the abuser multiple times and really convey a sense of just grief and desperation and really thick despair. And I love the way the characters build. I just wanted to ask, were you under pressure to make it a shorter film? Did you ever?
I was actually, but first of all, thank you for those generous comments. That's great to hear. Great feedback. I appreciate the comment on the running time too, because like some other people here in the block, I made it as my USC thesis film, and it's hard to make longer films at USC, but I understand why. But with the help of my mentor, Professor Michael Uno, he really helped me understand why those moments needed to be played out the length that they were. And we knew that we probably wouldn't fit into a lot of screening blocks and stuff, but it would find a good home with the right people who were fans of the film, and the people that take the time to watch it, we get good feedback from. So it's been really nice. But yeah, definitely it is a common timeline to try and hit a certain number for sure.
And those locations also are just unbelievable.
Oh, cool. That's actually my hometown. That's where I grew up.
It had to be an area that you knew.
Yeah. It was a great pleasure to be able to bring the USC film crew to like a small town in Iowa and get to make it with friends and family. And my mom was a big producer and production designer on it. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was a great experience all around.
Fantastic. I love that thesis films apparently are getting really, really subversive just about everywhere. Good thing to see. Kelsey, you mentioned in your bio that you, in your childhood, you were frequently fantasizing about killing people. And I wonder, and it feels, I mean, of course, the fourth wall was informed in a lot of ways by a really, really strong, genuine anger, which I admire in art. Do you want to speak to that a little bit? Just anger as a creative energy.
Yeah, I mean, oh gosh, I think anger is super powerful, and it can lead us to a lot of amazing things, and it can lead us to obviously a lot of like destructive things. It's one of those like emotions that has to be well placed. I was not an angry child. I just have to like put that out there. I just loved horror films. I loved horror films as like a young kid, but specifically to the fourth wall, Lizzie Brocheret, who was awesome, and she plays Chloe really tough.
Yeah, she's really good.
I moved to LA like 4 years ago, and I have a lot of friends who are actors that are just like mad all the time because they don't have a chance. Like, it's hard to break into the industry, and if you're in for like 5 seconds and then you're out, and
everything is so competitive. The most basic social thing becomes a competition. Exactly.
And even in directing, writing, like whatever, you know, you're in the entertainment industry, it's dog eat dog world. And I mean, I just like really wanted to play into that collective energy that I think a lot of, you know, younger people in LA have, well, in the industry in itself, have towards just like breaking in, and once you're in, you're out. So I wanted to make it kind of funny at the same time, because I do think that like
it is very funny.
Equally as powerful as anger. But yeah, that definitely, you know, when it's well placed, it can be an explosion of murder and humor at the same time. So that's kind of like what the fourth wall tapped into.
Fantastic, thank you. This is Jasper with Nightingale. Right now, the depiction of healthcare workers in any sort, or just what's the right way of putting it, patient care professionals, it's much more resonant than it normally would be, or I should say it's just particularly resonant, as we're just seeing endless nurse diaries of what they're dealing with in COVID wards, and certainly in elder care facilities. The COVID outbreak has become so front and center. So I feel audiences are more than ever extremely sympathetic to depictions of healthcare workers on screen. And what's interesting in your film is that your lead, first, appearing as an overworked healthcare professional, so we all bond with her immediately and feel for her so much. When she's revealed to be this supernatural predator of sorts, what's interesting is that there's still a certain creepy tenderness that she has towards some of the older patients, which I found really compelling and unsettling. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, like I said before, like I was sort of traumatized by this footage I saw of this healthcare worker abusing an elderly person. I just for me, it was really important to not have a victim or an abuser. Like the system is more of a, I think, an abuser in a way, and there's like victims on both sides. So I wanted to show like what is happening for this person that actually does that abuses. Yeah, like you have to be driven to a certain point to do that, and to make it like a bit easier on the audience. I made her into a mythical creature, but I still wanted her to be real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's still a real compassion, absolutely.
Yeah.
And is this, if I may ask, is this a proof of concept for a feature? Because it's alluding to the fact that, other patients are aware of what's going on, and you have a sense of a much thicker backstory that hasn't been revealed yet. Is this something that you looked at expanding?
Yeah, well, it totally didn't start out that way, but I think like a day after we finished editing, I was like, oh, okay, this maybe it turned out into a proof of concept more than I thought it would be, and a lot of people are really like invested in the main character, like what's her story.
And also that performance is so strong too. She sells it so well.
Yeah, I'm really happy with Nina. But so it wasn't set up this way. But who knows? I hope so. Yeah.
Same. No, I hope you get offers. I can see it being a big feature. Also, I wanted to ask: was that an actual nursing home location that you managed to shoot in?
Sort of. It was. No, it was. I think it was a former revalidation center.
Oh, okay, like rehabilitation.
Yeah, like people who had like severe accidents and they need to.
Convalescence home.
Yeah. So it was basically what it was.
Fantastic! It looks great.
Thanks.
So, I guess starting from one upwards, if you can each tell, and this is a tacky question to ask, but it conversationally unlocks the best stories. If you can each tell your favorite and most challenging moment during production.
Oh man.
Or best and worst, however you want to go.
I think for me, it was like, this was my first time to act in something that I directed, and we were moving, it was a night shoot, and we were running behind because some plates on some stuff broke and all kinds of stuff. And so I wasn't able to look at any of the footage that we were shooting for a number of, especially all the car sequences and the special effects things, because of the blood and things we were using. And it was so incredibly unsettling to be totally unaware and having to trust other people You know, when you're like, oh, did we get it? Like, you know, I couldn't see Gideon's performance behind me when we're driving. I didn't see any of it until I got in post. Huh. So that was just like this pit in my stomach until we got into the editing room. One of my favorite things, my son is the actor in it. And I asked him, like, what was the best part about it? And he's like, well, I got to sleep in the car for a while. And you're like, well, what was your favorite conscious point? And he was like, all the snacks were really good. So
nothing about murdering you. I guess that's a plus.
Really growing up a cinemaphile there. But no, it was a lot of fun.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, so we had an actor we had a creature actor for Mr. This for That, and like 2 days before the shoot for Mr. This for That, he had a death in the family and had to drop out last minute. So was super panicking, but an amazing producer, Caleb, who actually was like, let me put the outfit on, let me put the suit on. And we were like, all right, we're just going to do a little test because we had the stage, we had everything set. We're like, all right, let's just do a little test. We put him in and it was like, okay, this could kind of work. And then he started to kind of do some of the movements and we were working together and it was like, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, let's do this. So then the next day we just played some music and really played around with, his movements and everything. And we got so much footage and he stepped in right at the last minute and it was the scariest and ended up being one of the best moments of the shoot. But I guess so it's best and worst. Yeah. Best
at once. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
And he registers so well on screen. I mean, that's incredibly good fortune. Because usually if you have a producer who goes, I can probably play that, you're in real trouble.
Yeah. Put him in the outfit and then and like played some music and also played some really heavy music and he crawled on his hands and knees for this shoot and it was spectacular and we got what we got and it was and like that shot at the end, the close up on his mouth.
Yeah.
He came in, was like, hey, I made I made a bunch of black licorice and I like glued it together with chocolate sauce. Maybe we could get like with these. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. It was amazing. But yeah, best and worst moment there. It's definitely
fantastic.
The creature. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Danilo?
Is it? I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah. No, I'm the one jumping numbers.
It's all good. No, I was just gonna say I was remembering this time that we had 2 set builds on the same day. It was like it was a bathroom. We were building the bathroom and we were building this store. And I come back at like 5 or 6 in the morning to prep. And you're just asleep on the set wearing like you'd like crawled into the corner and you just grabbed one of the flags and used it as your blanket and you just grabbed one of the props and slept on it. This man just spent the whole night like building the whole set and that was super fun. And then we had this big wonder where this monster bursts into this orphanage and that was just so much fun. We coordinated like the 12 kids, their blocking, where they were when, the special effects, the stunts, and it just felt so great to put it all together. It was like 50 people working together on this single shot and it was really great. It was just like, it felt like filmmaking. It was a lot of fun.
Right on. I got a comment as well on the handcrafted look of the film in general in terms of the art direction, the special effects. Beautiful. Really, really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, we built the monster out of scratch and yeah, it was all about like trying to do as much practical effects as possible and referencing a lot of those fun 80s ones that, I don't know, it was a lot of fun.
Right on. Danilo?
Yeah, well, when we started preparing the short film, I was actually in production of some TV series, and I've been doing this 40-episode TV series for half a year. And 2 years ago, I took a break to make the film, but I was kind of scared if my brain is completely damaged and destroyed by doing this TV series. I was wondering, because I did 2 features before that, I was wondering if I can go back to film directing after this TV stuff. And then this was a two-day shooting and we finished our first day and I was sleeping in my hotel room and I woke up at 3 in the morning editing film in my head.
That could happen.
As I shot, I was completely awake and just like eyes wide open, and I just thought, okay, I need one more shot from this angle, and then I have to cut to. So that was actually the film was kind of reassurance for me that I can do TV and not be transformed into a TV hack and just keep some focus on the film.
And the short is unbelievably cinematic. I mean, just the scale of the visuals. I mean, it feels like a very big movie.
We were very, very lucky with the location, but we have a great DOP. He's one of the finest in Serbia, and he did a couple of really big blockbusters, and he's a friend. And we also had a production designer who did a number of American films who are made in Serbia. So we had a pretty good crew, and the lead actor is also maybe somebody recognizes him from Rare Exports, if you know the film, the Finnish film.
Oh man, we played that. I guess it's 5 years ago now, 4 years ago.
I think maybe even more.
Maybe even a bit more.
Yeah.
It was the same year that Dick Mast made Stint, and there were the two Christmas-themed genre films.
Yeah, and then he was in Big Game. I don't know if you know that film.
Yeah, right. With Sam Jackson.
So it was kind of an internet because he's Finnish. We had to fly him to Serbia, and then we had a Bulgarian stuntman. We had kind of international crew there for 2 days.
That's insane, but great.
It was so fun, so much fun doing it.
Cool. Kelsey?
Yeah, so my like best and worst, I mean, there's like two things about the film that I think both are the best and worst things about it. For me, I don't speak French. So
you're like the actress in the film that everyone gets mad at.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's me in France. I'm like, I mime everything. I don't speak French, so that was in itself was a huge challenge. So fun though, because it brought the crew together, coming up to me, being like, I know you didn't like, they're not saying this word correctly or so. I mean, it was cool. It was a collective experience, just like listening to the way people were talking. But there was one scene in particular that I think technically was super challenging. That is now my favorite scene in the whole film. But basically, the dressing room was like 6 by 10 feet. Like it was tiny.
So were you shooting like a 10mm? What kind of a lens were you shooting on to make that?
Yeah. I mean, at that point, so basically the whole film, we had to make that scene up because the whole film we were shooting on a Steadicam. We wanted to shoot Steadicam in that room as much as possible, but like I also wanted one shot. And we had to stick the camera on my DP's shoulders while also having 2 sound people in there, the 3 actors, and 3 mirrors that were all in that.
Of course, right, yeah. Right.
So watching like the BTS of that, there's like people rolling on the ground, like under people, like it was like watching acrobat, like it was the coolest thing I've seen. It was, and we were cheering when we were done because it was kind of one of those things that when we were going through rehearsals, everyone was looking at each other like, I don't like, we're gonna try, but it ended up being like, you know, my favorite, favorite scene in the film. There was a lot of like overcoming there. So yeah.
Fantastic. I hope you consider putting some of that making of footage online eventually.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's the plan.
Yeah, you should. It's just too amazing not to. That's wild. I'd love to see it. Jasper.
Best and worst. I'll start with worst. Like the pre-production was really tough because we had 2 days to shoot, and a lot of this time was like taken up by effects. So like pre-production was really a lot of work. I knew beforehand, like I have to sort of have the film already before we start shooting. It has to be like extremely efficient, but we had so much bad luck with the location. It was like there was a certain point where I was just like, I don't know if we're gonna do this somewhere. But luckily we ended up with like a really, really nice location, like exactly what I wanted. But we at a certain point we canceled like 2 weeks before shooting because we thought we had a location, but they sort of got scared or something. I don't know. They pulled out at the last minute. So that was like really stressful. And the best was like, yeah, I don't know. It's sort of a typical moment, like you're shooting and you don't know if everything's gonna work. And for me, like having a convincing, like real sort of vampire woman was the most important thing. And then when we were shooting the stunt scene and she has to sort of break up after beating up this old guy, it was like so intense. I was standing there, I was like, okay, wow, she nailed it. And it was like, from then on, the shooting was so much easier for me, because I thought like, okay, at least this is working, you know, like the most important, the core is working. So that was really nice.
Thanks. Faye?
Hi, yeah. I think the whole thing was just an attempt to do a lot on a very small budget. So we had animals, a baby, puppet. We had a platform which we built, just buckets of slime all the time. I mean, it was just 3 days of stuff kind of going wrong. But I think what was fun was I think everyone who came on board knew it was going to be like that, because you know, something with that much effect and so many special elements, you just know that it's going to be stressful. Probably the best was, one of the hardest things to do was, I kind of don't want to give too much away, but I don't know how many people have seen things, but when the actress is kind of coming up out of the floor, and it was so hard to set it up, but she was just so brilliant. I mean, Lara is just so game anyway, and like what I put her through, you know. Yeah, just that shot, you think, oh god, all of this is worth it. Yeah,
it's really powerful imagery. She's amazing.
She's brilliant. She's brilliant. And that was great, because you know, you can't ask too much of a fox or a baby, but you know, she was so brilliant.
An adult actor, you can
whatever we threw at her, whatever happened, she was just fantastic. Yeah,
it's very fortunate. It's great.
Yeah.
Stephen?
Oh man, I have so many best moments. It was a great production. I really enjoyed bringing LA crew and Atlanta crew into Iowa, my town of like 1,200 people, and my town welcomed everybody. It was great. Like, I guess a really cool highlight was I used to work for Tony Scott. And
I saw that in your bio. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was a
with Ridley as well. Didn't you work with both of them at one point?
I did, yeah. Yep. Over at Scott Free RSA. But anyway, I got to meet incredible craftsmen and technicians through those guys. And Tony's stunt coordinator actually flew in from Louisiana to help us do the work, the jerk fest at the end of the film. I don't want to give away the end if anybody hasn't seen it yet, but that was really cool. It was really selfless of him to come up and spend a day in small town Iowa and then leave the next day. It was great. I guess filming in small town Iowa was the best part, but also the hardest part, because we're so far away from USC or LA. There's like rental houses and stuff like that aren't around, and you're out in the elements. And so the hardest part was I lost a half a day of shooting to weather, and a tornado actually was in the county. So we had to close it down for that day, but we did get some beautiful storm footage.
Cool. And can you tell us a bit about just the ensemble, working with the kids, directing them through some of the more emotionally difficult moments of the film?
Oh, absolutely. I gotta hand it to the adult actors in the film, Goran and Molly. They came out from LA with me, lived in my home in Iowa for a month, and really soaked in what it was like to be in the Midwest. And as we were casting the kids, they spent a lot of time with them in terms of just talking about what it is to be an actor and doing like fun acting exercises. Goran was a grad student in the acting program at USC. I met him there. He's a great guy. We got really lucky in the casting process. Izzy and Nathan were both found locally, just through word of mouth. Turns out my friend's son was a great actor right there in Lone Tree, Iowa. So we put him in front of the camera. He was a natural. We just got really lucky. We spent a lot of time with the kids and made them really comfortable and made sure everybody felt good and safe about everything. And it was a good process all around. Everybody was on the same page.
Fantastic. I think now is a good time to open it up to questions from the audience. So yes, inorganic and strange, but there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you find it and type little messages to us, I will give voice to your messages and read them to the filmmakers, and your questions will be answered. And I'm seeing no open questions. So sometimes it takes a bit of time for a few to come through, but while we wait, Felipe, you'd mentioned that you grew up around Latin magical realism stories. And I presume that must have affected your artistic outlook in very big ways. Would you like to speak to that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I remember like my grandma's campfire stories. She would be like casually like, "Oh, I saw your dead grandfather last week." And I was like, okay. So there's always a kind of fantastical, supernatural element that I thought was really, really fascinating. And I feel like that's where things get interesting, when like reality meets magic and fiction and fantasy. And I don't know. And I think it's a way to personify things that are very internal too. So we wanted to do something along those lines. And Nick and I talked about that, the writer, and kind of playing off that a little bit. And big inspiration was Del Toro too, who kind of plays with that as well. And yeah, that's it.
I was getting a bit of Tigers Who Are Not Afraid out of your film as well, vibe-wise.
For sure, I love that movie.
Yeah, me too. It's great.
Yeah, I showed the crew.
Sorry?
Sorry. I was just gonna say the biggest influences were Pan's Labyrinth and Devil's Backbone. We all the whole crew, all the department heads watched it together. Those are both just great.
They are. They're fantastic films. So, a question from Jay Cutter: was there any special movie, short, or dream in your life that inspired the inception of your work? Hang on, is this for all the filmmakers you're asking? Was this? If you can maybe add, yes. Okay. So, starting from number one.
Is there any kind of dream? What was the? Sorry, can you repeat the
question? Yeah. Was there any special film, short, or dream in your life that inspired the inception of your work?
I mean, not especially. I mean, like I said, it started with a tweet from a filmmaker friend of mine that's like a vegan, and I started thinking about what would happen if you hit a deer and had to put it out of its misery.
Fair enough.
Well, the inception of Mr. THISFORTHAT was from the mind of Michael Carr, who is the writer, who wrote a really lovely short about a greedy little girl. And then what you saw today was just an amalgamation of our working together and coming up with, personalized stories. Like I said, we're both children of divorce, and that was really important for us to create the story of a little girl who's going, trying to solve the problems of her family on her own. We were heavily inspired by, movies like It Follows and It Comes at Night, and The Babadook was huge. Say again?
I would think Monkey's Paw to a point.
Yes, yeah, exactly. We definitely wanted to root it in reality as much as possible. Gregory Cruikshan's photography was huge in how we framed everything. The sort of the suburban morose style that we were aiming for. we had a lot of influences that we pulled from here and there all over the place. Even E.T. I was terrified of E.T. as a kid. That when he throws the ball in the shed and the ball comes back by itself, that I ran out of the room when I was a kid. That's
it's Spielberg's The Changeling moment.
Yeah.
But no, but E.T. is set up like a horror film until the creature's revealed to be super adorable and empathetic.
Exactly.
And he's definitely channeling to the Close Encounters, really like scary dread.
Yes. When the
film
boy gets taken, it's the little screws that come up from the vent.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. Jurassic Park is a horror movie. Yeah, all of those are. I could talk about horror Spielberg all day, but those were good too.
All right. Felipe?
In the last section.
I feel like you've already answered it kind of before I even got to ask it. But.
Yeah, I think maybe like medieval artwork too. We looked at like
yeah, I see that.
Delights, just like Chaos and Peter Bruegel Adler's paintings too. I think, yeah.
Cool. Danilo?
Yeah, I think it's quite obvious. I mean, Shaun of the Dead was a big inspiration for the film. Edgar Wright's work. Like, almost like a dedication to him.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, and we actually use these zoom lenses that was actually inspired by some Kubrick films. So that's completely a strange combination, but it seemed to have worked.
Mm-hmm. It does.
At least for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kelsey?
Yeah, I mean, I said, so Gaspar Noé is a huge influence. Enter the Void, obviously, is like one of my favorite films. But Julia Dockerow also is a huge influence of mine. She did Raw. I'm like obsessed.
Yeah, Raw's incredible.
Yeah, like,
That's
I mean,
amazing.
her film, it is raw. I mean, so like she's really good at like movement as well as like intimate moments with these characters, which I mean, I'm obsessed with. And another huge influence I would definitely say is Sam Levinson. Assassination Nation, like, I mean, that the cinematography in that film is just like nuts. It's really nuts. Euphoria, all of those films. I love the movement. I love the colors. And also like using these things to have such my cat is just having like a field day.
I have my cat in another room or else he'll come in and just shriek for attention.
They know that you can't stop them doing whatever they want. Yeah.
Yeah, she's literally knocking things over and I'm just like, all right, this is but yeah, all of these directors, they know how to use movement to kind of help, like create this visceral experience where, you're crying, laughing, you're scared, you're all of these things, but you're like circling each character as it happens. You're never like static, which I'm obsessed with. And I also love films that kind of feel like they're just like musically driven. Not so much that the music kind of like overtakes the emotion, but very much like there's just like a constant heartbeat and energy and just like this where you almost feel like the time is running out at all moments. I love films like that. So those directors do a great job of it.
Fantastic. Thanks. Jasper.
For me, I really wanted to make like a European horror movie. Mainly also because I watch so much American movies. Like I'm so into American stuff, and lately, like Raw also was for me a big source of inspiration. I was like totally blown away by that movie. But also Let the Right One In, the Swedish one. Yeah, and I had a lot of discussions with my production designer about how the film should look, and I kept telling her like,
look at Thomas Alfredson's work. You were just basically
I would say like, listen, we're not making a Dutch horror movie. We're making a Danish horror movie. Like that's where we have to go. That's basically the way we went. And I'm also a big Carpenter fan. So
yeah. The funny thing is, he didn't direct it, but I had a strong Halloween 2 vibe to the atmosphere from it.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of hospital set horror films to begin with, but it really specifically felt the way it's shot, you know, the use of space, of negative space in the hallways.
Well, thanks. That's a big compliment. Like, it was one of the you know, the posters I put up. Like, okay, it has to be, we have to be there. So thanks.
Cheers. It's great. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure I even remember. I think you know, it was quite a while ago, but the actual story is very much a real life inspiration. But I think in terms of cinema, I think there's always so many. I think, you know, you have so many different conversations during pre-production, and I'm sure there were so many films that I referenced, but I don't think there was any one particular film that was the reference. So a lot. Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, it's hard because I think you always end up having these conversations, you know, particularly production and design and DP. But I think it's always just, for me, it's always about, it's focusing on the story and focusing on almost the real inspiration rather than necessarily the cinematic inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Stephen.
I guess for this film, the main inspiration came to me in meditation. I had the image of a young boy who was, I guess, enlightened enough and not beat down enough by society to be able to be aware of his father trying to communicate with him from the grave, essentially. And then things kind of just went from there, drawing from my childhood and growing up in Iowa in the 80s and stories I know about domestic violence in the area, things like that kind of just culminated in that story. But it all came from this idea of a boy who could hear his father's ghost.
Okay, thanks. So Tiffany Elliman asks, or says, I love the fourth wall, exclamation mark. What directors and, okay, same question, sorry. but yes.
Hey, Tiffany.
Guillaume Mone asks for everybody, how did you choose the perfect soundtrack to create the right amount of intensity?
Man, for me, it was really hard. Part of the part that I struggled with the most was the what to do with the first part when they're in the car, and how like campy or how, you know, play with like somber and all these different things. And I think what I really wanted to create was something that felt awkward, because for me, a lot of times parenting can be that, and you don't have the answers, and it's just, you know, you're trying to remember like what your dad did, and a connection with that. And then I think also like some of like the music stops were really important to me, because there were moments of there's moments where the dad's trying to connect with the son, and the other one shuts him down, and then the son's trying to connect with the dad, and the dad shuts him down, and then there's the connection with the deer. And so like trying to have those moments musically kind of overlapped. I mean, it's like a minor thing that probably only I noticed, but I just think for me, those are the elements that I was looking for in the music when I was trying to put it all together, even in this just like, you know, my 5-minute short. But yeah, that was how the lens I tried to use.
I knew that the subtle synth world was where I wanted to be, because we wanted to be the time period to be very ambiguous, and there's a lot of 90s-ish sort of theme, like the video game console that she's playing is reminiscent of a Super Nintendo, or more of a NES Nintendo video game system. And yeah, that was where I wanted the world to be. But we had this really great sound design of the oil rigs in the back behind the house that we thought, you know, would be really amazing to use as part of the sound design as well. And I told the composer, hey, here's the sound. It's got this like this metal weird creaking. This is the sound of oil literally being dug up from the ground, which is a little classic Faustian bargain in itself. But we wanted that sound to, let's see what happens if that gets incorporated into the soundtrack. And if you listen really closely in the credits as the soundtrack is sort of fading out, you'll hear the echo of that oil rig, but personified in a musical sense.
That's great.
For us, we did, well, a lot of it was, it's about kids looking for a father, a mother figure. So we looked at lullabies, and once we had that core lullaby, basically almost every song is a take on that lullaby, but with totally different instruments. Some are much more horrific, some are very sweet. Just having that motif, I think, really building around that was a lot of fun. And then we looked at a lot of religious music, horror music. I gave the composer like 100 song playlist that I really liked, and he kind of went from there.
It's my turn.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We didn't choose the music. It was composed for the film. I have a friend who's a composer. He was actually also once, if anybody saw the new Will Ferrell film, he also participated in Eurovision Song Contest a few years ago. But he's a really talented guy. And but basically our idea was just to have a merry song to just be to contradict all the gruesome events that happen on screen, you know. So I just played around with rhythm and melody to you know, speed it up in some very dramatic moments, to slow it down when we have something important to focus the audience on. But it was actually quite easy. It's easy working with talented people.
Kelsey?
Yeah, I mean, the fourth wall was, we had a composer, his name's Sylvan Kaufman. He is dope. He's the best. I basically wanted to really pull upon like French electronic music, specifically like Gustav Holstein, who's like one of my favorite French artists. But I definitely wanted the film to feel like a mix of like The Matrix meets Billie Eilish. Because I think I wanted it to live in a commercial world, but like have that like edge that a lot of French electronic has. And like, obviously I wanted it to exist in its own place. And if you put the bass up, it could be like club music. So I think we did that.
Great. Jasper?
We also had a lullaby that was very important. And the composer, Sjoerd Leijten, is actually a very good friend. And we've also worked like many times before. So I basically just trust him. But that one, the lullaby, I was really hard on him. Like, it has to be simpler. It has to be more emotional. So we worked a lot on that. And yeah, beforehand, we also had an idea to use atypical horror instruments. So we wanted to see if we could make a guitar like really scary. And it sort of ended up in the final film. So yeah.
Yeah, we didn't. I mean, I didn't have any dialogue, and we didn't really have any music either. I worked with a sound designer. Yeah, worked with a sound designer I've always worked with as well, who's just brilliant. And I think it was just one of these things because, you know, there were so many kind of animal noises, including human animal noises, that sort of dictated everything. So the baby crying and all the different animals. So that kind of presented itself. And I think, you know, a lot of it was, I don't know, I suppose when you just sort of sound design noises, and it almost the score was the sound, yeah, all the different sounds that were in it rather than music, really. So that's kind of how I approached it. But yeah, yeah, it's always hard to know how much baby crying people can actually take in a film. Yeah.
Cool. Steve?
Yeah, so for the Green Sea, we knew that the farm and the scope and the scale of the Green Sea, the fields of corn, we wanted all of that to be an epic part of a character on its own. And so we wanted to build in as much atmospheric, natural sounds as possible. So that's where we started. I should say Johnny Vong started, our sound recorder, who was on set recording everything, and then was also our sound designer, who built this beautiful score the way it was, and then matched that with our composer, who kind of just heightened the atmospheric feeling of stuff, because we wanted the air to feel ghostly, and we wanted Greensy's presence to feel ghostly, and we wanted the music to complement whatever atmospheric stuff was already there. Yeah, so that's as much natural stuff in there as we could, or make it feel that way.
Okay, thanks. And Jay Cutter, who asked the question one back, says to the group, thanks to your generous responses, greatly enjoyed all the films for their own individual DNA, giving them life. So, question from Steve, comment for Kelsey and Faye. Your films really stood out as fresh and authentic, and were told from the perspective of the female protagonist very successfully. What is your experience, thoughts working, directing in the field of horror when it comes to gender?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I sort of have a career of two parts. I made shorts and then a feature, and then I had a kid and had a break and came back. So it's changed so much in that period. I mean, when I was making films maybe 15 years ago, probably more like 15, 20 years ago, to be honest, I was always the only woman genre filmmaker. Every time I would go to a festival, I would be the only woman director, always. And now, you know, it's just not the case, which is absolutely brilliant. You know, it's changed so much. And I do think it's hugely important, because I think I see so many movies where you have, you know, sort of motherhood or young motherhood, and not many of them are told from the perspective of somebody who actually has that experience. So I do think it is a way of having a lot of kind of fresh takes and fresh voices on themes and ideas which we've seen, you know, for decades in cinema. So yes, it's a very good change in the past 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just piggyback off of that. I haven't been in the industry that as long, but to me, you know, ever since I was a kid, the genre space just seemed like the natural space for women. And I was a little bit confused why there weren't more female directors, just because all of the leads were women, it seemed like, and they were just these stories kept being told from a male perspective. And so, I mean, to be honest, like, I've seen an equal amount of female directors in the genre space as I have male, like at all of the film festivals we've gone through in the past couple of years, which I think is awesome. I mean, I get asked this question a lot, and I'm always kind of like, it just feels like, it doesn't feel like any different. Like, I could be a man, it's the same kind of thing. But what's cool is that a lot of female filmmakers are taking on those like stories like Faye, where, you know, this is clearly a female experience told from a female perspective, which is so refreshing. Because I mean, I have two friends that had kids in the past year, and so that, I mean, your film, Faye, spoke to me, because I was like, finally someone's talking about this. I mean, men, unfortunately, they can't speak to that experience, and I think it belongs in the horror space, because so much of the female experience is horror. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense why, you know, in the past couple of years, more women have been showing up. But yeah, I mean, that's just my take on women in horror.
Also, the genre was born through women. I mean, Mary Shelley with Frankenstein.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right
Yeah.
at the inception of
definitely.
genre storytelling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm happy that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny what I'm saying, and I'm really sort of Frankenstein in a weird way is it's sort of almost about motherhood or parenthood from a female perspective, but through a whole different kind of a lens.
Yeah, almost a perversion of a man wanting to give birth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So see, okay. I think to close, if you're able to speak to this, because I know not everyone can, if you can tell us a bit about what you're working on next. Going from one onwards.
I'm
only if you're able to discuss that stuff, obviously.
I'm working on a documentary in more of a producer role, and then I have a few other things. I don't have anything that's like totally locked in other than that right now. So that one deals with like some Middle East issues and things like that. So it's kind of a totally different venue. It's the first time I've been involved in a documentary. I'm pretty excited to do that.
I think based on the strength of Oh Dear, this is your first time directing, was it?
This is the second short I made.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
In the first one, I killed my son. In the second one, he kills me. So
I love it. I feel based on the strength of Oh Dear, you're going to get a lot more work. I'm sure there'll be more.
I hope so.
It's a strong short.
I hope people enjoy it. I hope it makes them laugh and it makes them uncomfortable. That's kind of the goal of a short like that, I think.
Most definitely. Number 2, Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, currently I'm not waiting on COVID, but I was supposed to direct a short for the Sloan Science Foundation. Part of USC. I mean, I've graduated now, but as part of my last hurrah, I got a grant from the Sloan Science Foundation. Is supposed to direct that last June. Delayed due to COVID. So just on hold for that. In the meantime, without going into too much detail, Michael, the writer, and I are working on the feature version of Mr. This for That with some peoples. That's pretty much it. Those two things. It's been a whirlwind so far. I said whirlwind. Sorry. Next.
I'm developing like a fantasy adventure series set in Mexico. You're taking a lot of that kind of Mexican mythology on a big fantasy scale with Sony Television, and I'm writing a few spec scripts. They're mostly fantasy horror, so I'm excited about that.
Fantastic, thanks. Danilo?
We have a Serbian-South Korean co-production. It's kind of a action.
That doesn't happen very often. Wow.
No, not really. No. Actually, maybe there was one before, but it was a kind of basically they gave their line producers co-producing credits.
Okay, yeah.
This is a co-production that we're doing, and it's kind of action comedy. Sports film on this. It's set in Belgrade, but it has North Korean protagonists. So that's something that we hope we can shoot in spring, but it still depends on cast and of course the whole COVID situation. And then we are developing a story for a feature zombie comedy. And I'm also producing a documentary about science fiction films from former Yugoslavia.
Oh, wow.
And that's
very cool.
That I would love to share our promotional trailer with you, but I can't right now. But
as soon as we're able, I'd love to take a look. That's great.
Yeah, that one actually looks really fun. We started because it's mostly archive documentary. So we already started doing some work on that. We got some funding, and I think it's going to be super interesting.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelsey?
Yeah, I'm working on 2 features.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's all I'm allowed to say.
Understood. Jasper?
Right now, I'm editing like a no budget horror short with myself in the main role.
Oh, cool!
Yeah.
You first time acting?
Well, I always like acted in my own stuff, like small roles when I could.
Are you in Nightingale? I wasn't aware. It's great.
No. There was no time. No.
Okay.
Or place. So I'm doing that. I don't know. I think I have to do a lot of VFX. Like it's going to be an After Effects party. So it's going to take a while. But I started working on a treatment just in case somebody asks, like, you have a bigger unit with this character from Nightingale. So that's what I'm doing.
Terrific. Thanks.
Yeah. I've got a few projects. There's 2 features which are kind of at the my 2 features at the furthest stage are Snowflakes, which is I've got a proof of concept of that, which was in Born of Women, one of the short sections at Fantasia, and I've got a sort of a fairy tale horror which I'm developing as well. But yeah, it's a matter of when things can get off the ground post COVID and navigating the rules and figuring out how on earth I'm gonna get this done. Yeah.
And as you know, I adore Snowflakes.
Yeah, thank you.
It's so wonderful.
Yeah, and it's the time to make it, but I think it is. It's also quite hard to figure out how to make anything of scale and a decent budget with new rules and
And well, the COVID things are there because I mean you're in an immigration center. People have to be in tight proximity.
Yeah.
No real way to keep them.
Yeah, but, I mean it's funny. It's a shame. It's the right time for it, and yet, yeah, it's very hard to get anything made.
Yeah, for now. Hopefully, this won't last too much longer.
For now, yeah.
So, Stephen?
So I've gotten really good feedback and a lot of interest from people to make a feature version of the Green Sea.
Oh, good.
So I'm working on that. And then I've got kind of a magic realism hillbilly opioid movie that I'm just fascinated with, and I really want to make that. So
sign me up. That sounds great.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, especially the people overseas. I know that it was really difficult to be here at this hour. So I greatly appreciate it. And congratulations. It's all really, really strong work. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for
hosting this.
Yes, thank you.
It's beyond a pleasure.
Thank you,
I love this stuff.
Well, thankful.
All right. Be well, everybody. Stay safe.
You too.
Okay.
Night.
Bye.
Bye.